Instead of me making the decision for you, let me give you the information. You can make the choice for yourself. All Bibles fall into 3 translation categories based on word translations and historical distance. Historical distance looks at concepts and ideas that don't exist in our world today, that existed when the scriptures were written. It can get confusing, and the easiest way to explain it is through talenton. If you don't know Koine Greek, you might think that's a goat or a house or someone's grandma. However, it actually means a measurement of weight. And in the parable in Matthew 25, it's used to describe the weight of an amount of silver. So, do we translate that to talents, which mean weight, or do we translate that to a modern idea of a dollar or a pound, or do we say coins? And if we try to explain the amount with inflation, that can change from a 1940 edition to a 1980 edition to one today. Here's how that is answered in each type of translation. The first is a literal translation or a word-for-word translation. This type tries to stay as close as possible, and the translators try to find a single English word to use for each Hebrew or Greek word in the earliest available manuscripts. This keeps historical distance at a minimum and keeps the translators' opinions at a minimum too. But they're difficult to read, and they fail to communicate some of the fuller concepts and ideas. The opposite end is the free translation or paraphrase. The translators try to take the ideas from one language to another without maintaining any of the exact structure or word use. They are much easier to read and understand because the ideas are put into a language that we think and feel. The downside is that it intentionally increases the historical distance, and the translators' opinions are quite prominent. In the middle of those two is the dynamic equivalent or thought-for-thought translation, where they try to find the precise equivalents for words, idioms, and grammatical constructions from the original languages. It attempts to keep the historical and factual matters intact while updating the language and grammar and style. It helps with the understanding of ideas and thoughts from the biblical text, but it also increases the historical distance a bit and allows more room for the opinion of the translators. This is why translation committees are important. They use a variety of theological backgrounds and experience, but as we saw in that 1947 RSV translation, sometimes even this doesn't create a perfect environment. But when it comes down to it, if you're not trying to look at every detail to make sure it's historically accurate and looking at the big picture of what the story is, rather than worrying about whether it's coins or thousands of dollars or talents, the message is still the